So now that we've worked on our speed control, if you're going to putt to a hole, we're going to putt from a distance that is reasonable to make. So for beginners and the high handicappers, that's going to be maybe 3 feet or 4 feet, 2 feet maybe even to begin with. So you get a sense of seeing the ball roll into the hole. You don't want to be making all these putts and missing every putt and then trying to take that bad attitude onto the golf course. So we've worked on our speed control. We get a sense of what it's like to roll the ball 10, 20, 30 feet. And now it's time to think about the actual setup to the putt and get closer to the hole. You'll notice here I've put a string out maybe 6, 7 feet out, and I've got a chalk line on the ground and then a string above it as well. And I can explain a little bit about how I use those training aids. But let's just talk about setup to the putt and a couple mechanics things that we need to focus on. The first thing would be the general putting grip. Your grip is going to affect the face angle at impact, right? And so we need to make sure that it is consistent and square to our intended target line, which in order to do that, the best way that I know to do that is to make sure that your palms are facing one another and you're not working with a dominant hand one way or the other. So there's endless grips with putting. You'll see all kinds of different grips. I go with the more just traditional overlap putting grip. But basically I've got a neutral grip here where both my palms are facing, working together and working in alignment with the putter shaft. Then the idea is to have our shoulders aligned with matching up to that grip so that we don't have our shoulders closed or open or whatever. That's really going to affect the path. So if I've got my right hand under, I'm going to tend to come more from the inside, or if my shoulders are more closed to my target, I'm going to be out to in. So it's really important to marry up your alignment with your feet and your knees and especially your shoulders with your grip and make sure they're matched up. Now, what I want you to see, where are your eyes in relation to over the golf ball? You want your eyes either over the ball to slightly inside your intended target line, right? So see how that's landing just about an inch or so inside the ball? That's okay. And I would say for the majority, I think maybe slightly inside would be a great place to be. What you don't want is when your eyes are out there. So you can always test that. It's a great way when you line up to the ball, you take a ball and check it and see where it is. See where your eyes are. You might be way out here, and you'll know. Obviously, if your eyes are a foot from the inside of your intended target line, how are you ever going to get the ball to roll on your intended target line? So the other thing is there's a lot of ways to stand. There's a lot of different putting stances and everything else. But the one thing you will see that's very consistent with pretty much anyone that's set up properly to putt is that the right forearm will be an extension of the shaft of the putter itself. It's not, my arms aren't like this or like that. I want my eyes over the ball, slightly inside. Make sure I've got my right arm is just sort of an extension of that shaft. And then as a right eye dominant player who's playing right-handed, who happens to be left-handed, is that I really open myself up to the target. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and just make a little pendulum stroke. Back and through. So to get my ball to roll on the intended line that I need it to roll on, the best way for me that I've found to do that is to look a couple inches out in front of the ball on this red line, and I really just focus my eyes on, not on the golf ball, but right here and trying to get the ball to roll over that line. And it's amazing when you work with the lines, all of a sudden when the line's not there, you start to see the line, and it's really cool the way it kind of comes back to you. The string above us, I like that because most putters have markings, for the center of the putter, whether it's on the top line or back here or whatever. And it allows me to see where my putter is swinging, if it's swinging inside to square to inside, or if I'm trying to make more of a pendulum stroke back and through. And it really gives you a sense of your putter path. I like the instant feedback because you can correct it. You're able to know, am I taking the putter back inside too fast? Am I taking it outside? Am I taking it straight back and through? The other thing, you can use the line on the ball itself as another line to help you. But I try to get my eyes right over the center line, taking it straight back and through. Really thinking about centeredness of hit. The other thing you'll notice with putts is you need to be continually accelerating. We don't want to be decelerating. No matter how long or short the putt is, we still want to make sure we're accelerating through the ball. A practice session for me might look like just work on this for half an hour. Back and through. Really thinking about centeredness of hit. Let's talk about eye dominance. And this is something I picked up from Annika Sorenstam actually quite a while ago. And I found it to be very helpful. But knowing which if you have a dominant eye, and if so, which one is your dominant eye. And that plays a lot into your alignment and what your perception of what you're seeing versus what you're really seeing. Let's talk about how to determine which eye is your dominant eye if you have one. So if you make a triangle out here, out in front of you, and you focus on, let's just say I focus on that tree out there. And if I shut my left eye and my right eye's open, the tree doesn't move, okay? Now if I go ahead and shut my right eye and leave my left eye open, all of a sudden the target shifts completely out of focus, not out of focus, but out of range. And that tells me that I'm right eye dominant. So that's important to know. I know in my case, for example, because I'm right eye dominant, when I tend to look, if I'm on a tee or on the putting green, we go ahead, we line up to it, we take our head, we look up, and our right eye is the one that is the dominant eye in my case that's looking at where I'm aiming. And we typically what you'll see is folks aiming out to the right, whether it's with a wedge, driver, everything is too far to the right. So I've learned what's worked for me as a right eye dominant player who's playing right-handed, who happens to be left-handed, is that I really open myself up to the target on the putting green and certainly with my wedges. When you get into the higher lofted clubs, you definitely, because we've learned this through TrackMan, the more loft, the more left you need to aim to hit the ball straight. So go ahead and use this technique to find out whether you're left or right eye dominant. Maybe you're not, maybe you don't have a dominant eye. But if you do, you saw it with Nicholas. He was left eye dominant, so he would always get his head further behind the ball so he could get his left eye over the ball, and that's why he was always in that position. So take that into consideration and experiment with it. If you're right eye dominant, just be aware that maybe the reason you miss all your putts to the right is because that's where you're looking, because you're gonna hit it where you look. And it's more a matter of not having your eyes lie to you, but you're like, geez, I'm really aiming, I think I'm looking right down the line, but actually you're not. So you'll notice here, I'm putting to a hole, but it's only 6 feet or so. I'm either working on my distance control, my speed control, and I'm putting from fringe to fringe or to 20, 30, 40, 50 feet, or I'm working on my lag putting. None of that requires a hole. You don't need to putt to a hole to do any of that. In fact, I would recommend not putting to a hole, putting to the fringe or to a tee or whatever. And not worry about the golf hole until you're ready until you have a high probability of making the putt. So once you involve the golf hole, a better player, low handicap, is going to be out here around 7 feet. You'll see a lot of good players putting from that 7, 8 feet and in because those are the putts they need to make for par and for birdie a lot of time. And with these training aids down, you can get pretty good pretty quickly by doing that. The higher handicap, I would say let's start at like 3 feet. PGA Tour average, these guys are 50% from 6 feet. Okay, so just to give you an idea, they're not making 6 feet, right? They're 50%. The reason why it looks like they're 90% is because the guy on Sunday that's winning the tournament is making 100%. He's making 100% of those putts 10 feet and in for the week probably. He might miss one. So that's the discrepancy, It's even the best players in the world are missing half these putts from 6 feet. So you just have to understand that and realize that if you can understand how to get the ball within a couple feet from any distance, then from 5 feet and in, you can really start to hone in and start to score. And so I'm trying to beat the point that do not putt to a hole unless you're going to make it. You want to see the ball going in the hole. You want to hear the sound of the ball hitting the cup. Do not putt to a hole unless you're going to make it. And that's for that positive reinforcement. You can't underestimate that. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. And as we launch this new channel, we really appreciate your likes and your subscribes and comments as well. Thank you very much.